would like to call this Monday, March 30th, 2020, special meeting of the Cumberland County Commissioners to order. Our purpose here is to consider an ordinance that we may need in the coming days or weeks because of the COVID-19 crisis. At this time, I would like to acknowledge the presence of 4 board members who are here. Commissioner Booth, Commissioner Keefe, Commissioner Adams,
Here.
and myself. And we have several commissioners that are with us by telephone. I would like to ask the clerk to please acknowledge their presence for us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, for the record, Commissioner Council,
Yes.
can you acknowledge your attendance by saying present?
Yes.
Yes,
For the
Okay.
record, Commissioner Evans, can you acknowledge your attendance by stating present?
Sounds great to me.
oh, I mean present. I'm sorry.
You got it.
Commissioner Evans?
Present.
Thank you. For the record, Commissioner Lancaster, can you acknowledge your attendance by saying present? Commissioner Lancaster?
Take it off mute.
Commissioner Lancaster, is your phone on mute?
He was the first one here. I'll text him.
Commissioner Lancaster, are you present?
Hold on a minute.
He'll figure it out and he'll buzz in a minute.
Somebody call his house phone and tell him.
I texted him.
Okay, at this time, as we always do at our county commissioners meeting, we always honor God and country. So if you will stand for the invocation, and we'll follow that with Pledge of Allegiance. Gracious Heavenly Father, we come to you as humble servants of our county and our citizens. We ask that you bless the work that we're to do here today, and bless us all as we go on forward in this crisis. We know that the things of this world are in your hands. In your name we pray. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, I would ask for a motion for the approval of the agenda, please.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
For the
Aye.
Commissioner Lancaster,
Aye.
what is your vote, please?
Yes, ma'am. I can hear you on my phone. You can't hear me?
I can hear you now, Commissioner Lancaster. Thank you. Could I have for the record?
Thank you. Yes.
Your oral vote, please?
Yes.
Commissioner Evans, for the record, may I have your oral vote, please?
Yes.
Commissioner Council, for the
Aye.
record, thank you.
No,
Okay.
more coming, more coming.
Okay, item 2, Ms. Cannon.
Yes, yes, sir. Item 2 on the agenda is consideration of amendments to the Cumberland County Emergency Management Ordinance.
Okay.
So move.
And
Do
so
you
Mr. Moorfield will present the item.
Good afternoon, Commissioners, Mr. Chair. Do you want to wait until we get all these copies in? And I can get these at my copy machine
Yeah,
pretty
they
quickly.
don't have a color, they don't have one color
Well,
copy.
Do
Can you
gentlemen-
read from what you have?
Yes, sir, but do you gentlemen not, well, it's just a lot to read. Do you gentlemen not have it on your iPads? It was uploaded on Novus?
I had it on my iPad, but I was looking for a hard copy.
Okay.
It's okay.
I'll await the board's
I
directions.
got
then.
mine. I pulled it up. I'm good.
You know, I could barely understand what's being said.
Yeah, you got to speak up.
All right,
here.
yes,
Nobody can hear.
yes, I agree.
I can't either.
Can you hear me now?
I can't either. Cheryl.
Can the commissioners on the phone hear me now?
Yeah. Can the commissioner hear me now?
Commissioner Evans, can you hear me?
Yes.
Commissioner Council, you can hear me,
Yes.
Commissioner, okay, Commissioner Lancaster? I hear you, okay.
Better, yes, sir,
All
thank
right.
you.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, you want me to go ahead and proceed then?
If you want to, you can give us a synopsis of it, since we previously had a hard copy or a electronic copy, but just give us the what we need to know quickly.
Our emergency management ordinance has not been updated to include the revisions in 2017 to expand the definition of emergency to include a public health issue. And that's what we're in now. It also we have not added the technological failure or accident. So what this proposed change in revisions or amendment to the ordinance is to bring the current definition of emergency into our ordinance, and to also incorporate the new statutory language with respect to the options that, or the actions or options for actions that is available to the board or the board's chair to take any action. And it is necessary to have an ordinance in place, and you can only act within the scope of your ordinance. That's part of the statutes, because any proclamation made by the chair or the board has the effect of an ordinance, and that's the reason for that. And they had a question about that. And what I have done was kept the ordinance, I've given you the entire ordinance as it exists, and then did it in the format to show the changes that are in either strike-throughs or additions, and all these changes are in red font. To make it easier, I hope, to follow, I did identify the significant changes by a green font so that you could follow it better and identify each change. So with that in mind, what I'll do is go ahead and say the first, and there are some things in the bottom, particularly in citations, that are not necessary for the board's. Does someone not have their phone muted?
Go ahead, we can hear you.
Okay. So there are some things that you'll see through here that I didn't make any note on, and those are just technical things to deal with codification. So, all right, I'll speak above it.
It's getting worse.
That's canned hold music in an office.
That's what it sounds like.
He's
Do
the
each
first
of the
attorney
commissioners listening by phone have their phones muted?
There you go.
Thank you.
Well, a little walk-up music, I mean.
Somebody on the Maybe you phone need to is on stand there. hold. Hang up your call.
All right, if you follow the memo that I have provided to you, and I'm going to point out each one of these things. On page 2 of the ordinance, the identified as change 1 is just we incorporate all the definitions in the State Emergency Management Act, Article 1.
Hold, let's see. Let's just, let me, Charles.
I don't know
It's
if
either,
they can even hear Greg speaking.
yeah, it's either Charles, Jeanette, or Larry is trying to make a phone call while they're at this meeting, and they're on hold.
That's not Charles, then.
Not Charles.
Well, my phone is muted.
How can your phone be muted if you can speak?
I was.
Jeanette.
Jeanette, are you there? Commissioner Council?
Narrow it down.
Commissioner Council?
Commissioner Council?
Candace, can you confirm Commissioner Council?
Commissioner Council.
Commissioner Council, can you hear us?
It might be our on hold.
It's coming from this.
But it's got to be one of their phone numbers.
Somebody's put,
Can you cut the volume
somebody's
down?
put
on
us
that-
on hold.
On that device?
Jeanette's put us on hold. But then Larry and Charles aren't going to be here, I think.
Larry, can you hear us? Commissioner Lancaster, Commissioner Evans, can you hear us?
TV also, so I can hear you.
Hello, Commissioner Council, Commissioner Lancaster, Commissioner Evans.
10-4.
Jeanette says she's trying to call back in. So I don't know, she says she's trying to call back in.
Is everybody on the line now?
All right, it's clear now.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Commissioner Council, are you
Okay, I
back on the
just heard-
phone?
Turn it up, no.
I just heard Commissioners Lancaster and Evans.
Yes,
Is
sir.
Commissioner Council on the line now? She's trying to call back in.
Hold on a minute, she said something.
Okay, I'm going to say that we're just going to go ahead and move on until we get, when Commissioner Council calls in, we'll let her join us back. Commissioners Lancaster and Evans, are you still with us?
Yes.
Commissioner Evans?
Yes.
Okay.
That sounded like the same person.
That was Larry both times.
That was Larry both times.
Commissioner Evans? Commissioner Evans, have we lost you also? Okay, we have a quorum. Proceed.
Yes, sir. The first change, and what that change is our general definition will incorporate all the definitions in the Emergency Management Act as amended from time to time, so we shouldn't have to do this again. Immediately below that is our own definition of agency. The ones that are set out in here are not defined in the statute. And I just found out last night that our Emergency Management Department is not called the Emergency Management Department, it's called the Emergency Services Department. So I am asking to, and I just couldn't have gotten this back to everyone, just found it last night, but I'm asking to change that so that the definition of agency will be agency shall mean the County Emergency Services Department, and that takes care of that elsewhere. On the same page, change 2, we use disaster and emergency back and forth in our ordinance, and they have different meanings. Disaster is, in my proposed my recommendation for change, is now defined just like emergency is in the statute. On page, you jump over to page 5, recommended change 3. Down at the bottom of the page, under the extraordinary powers and duties of the director, that's our local director, the 4th item down there is control of rioting and looting. That was pretty commonplace when these statutes first came out back in the 70s, but not so much now, and I'm recommending that extraordinary power be removed from the director because it's more appropriately and really a law enforcement function. On page 8, change 4, I have stricken the language it's in the current statute, and below that incorporated the current language from the new statute. It is the same, has the same effect, it's just the language is different and a little broader. And you can follow that, and that's just striking our current language and putting the new language in completely. I want to point out on page 9, change 5, and this is something for the board to direct me on, because my recommendation is you do this, but this is certainly a board decision. The board has the authority to give the sheriff the authority to close streets, roads, highways, bridges, public vehicular areas or other areas ordinarily used for vehicular traffic in any emergency, or the board can reserve that authority to itself through this ordinance. So that is an option, that's one option that I would need the board to give me direction on. The rest of that is just, again, bringing the language up to the current language in the remainder of that section. And finally, okay, on page 10, let's see. Skip the page there. Two changes. Looking up at the top of end of the first paragraph on there, we have in our current ordinance a provision that any proclamation issued under this article shall expire at midnight on the fifth day. That is not a statutory requirement, and I'm recommending that be removed. The next change under our current state law allows us, and this is a board decision also, if the chair cannot be reached to declare, make a proclamation, then that authority under this ordinance would fall to the vice chair. If the vice chair could not be reached under our ordinance, it falls to the director of emergency services. That is totally discretionary with the board to do any of that. But one consideration that I would ask for some direction on the board is for that third person after the vice chair, should that be the director of emergency services who reports to the county manager or the county manager. So that is something for the board to decide also. And finally, on page 11, the current provision as to the penalties for this is as in our section 511. I'm suggesting that be removed altogether and a new section made, which is at the very end, section 514, which clarifies and brings, right now, the way the old law was, where our ordinance reads as misdemeanor. It's a class 2 misdemeanor. So, my recommendation would be to make a new section that clarifies that. You have seen in there some other places where there's red font that there's some changes. Those are all just changes related to correcting the statutory sites, and also because this is part of our code, some codification issues. And if the board, if you have any questions about any of this, I'll be glad to answer them. But I've set out my recommendation, a resolution that would accomplish this. I do ask the board to make a determination on those two issues, and I recommend all the other changes that are suggested in here, and then my recommendation is in the form of the resolution at the end of the memo. Okay, are there questions for the county attorney? Mr. Keefe.
Thank you.
All right, I'm on, Glenn.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Attorney, this is Jimmy speaking. Just for clarification to the public, does this ordinance only affect the unincorporated areas of Cumberland County, or if this ordinance were to be passed, would it include all residents of Cumberland County?
This only includes the jurisdiction of the county, which is all the area of the county outside of an incorporated municipality.
So in areas of social unrest that may happen inside the city limits of Fayetteville, we would have no jurisdiction.
We have no direct jurisdiction. The statute is set up in such a way that the county has the responsibility to coordinate all emergency actions within the county. That doesn't mean issue declarations, but coordinate. Typically, the approach that's taken, and that this county has taken also, is a joint effort in which every municipality is given the authority, requested if they wish to join into our resolution, and in the previous serious incidents we've had, that has been done.
Okay.
So that's always an option.
Okay. If I could follow up, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, if I could take a moment, I do need to recognize Dr. Green. You have done an amazing job, and I appreciate everything you've done as a public health director. I know this was not in your job description when you took the job, but thank you for all the hard work of you and your staff as you move forward. Rick, my concern as we go through this ordinance as it is actions that we take as a board affect everybody. And there are so many things out here that are new in our in our life, in our community, that weren't probably considerations in 1987 when this originally was done. Things like social unrest, things like these health crises that are going on. I think it's important that the county commissioners together are in unison as they move forward to give directives to the public. Effectively, what is happening in this rendition of the ordinance is we're taking 6 out of the 7 commissioners really out of the decision-making process and giving it only to the chair at one time. I'm not looking at it just for this particular instance where Commissioner Faircloth is the chair, but this ordinance will go on and on and on to other things as we move forward. I think that there may be some confusion that goes off, and the worst thing we could do is have the chair initiate a emergency directive and then the board come back later and rescind part of that, which we have the ability to do on here, because that would just involve more confusion. With technology where it is right now, is it going to be really that hard through electronic means to get a quorum and make this a board vote as it moves forward, as opposed to relying on one of the 7 commissioners, and if the chairman is not available, then it goes to the vice chair? That's one statement. And the other statement is, if there is a member of staff that's doing this, I don't see how it could be anybody else but the county manager, who is working day to day with the public health director, working day to day with the sheriff as it goes, or any of the other agencies that are affected. I'm just not sure that the emergency services person will have the global aspect of being able to look at a health crisis, social unrest, or any of the other things that may come to us. It may be good for some specific emergencies, but certainly not all emergencies. So my thing is, why couldn't we have a board vote on this?
And that's what this is about. It is a board decision. You have to adopt an ordinance, and you either delegate the authority to the chair or the vice chair, the county manager, or as you're suggesting, or you retain it to the board. It's a board decision.
Yeah.
The only thing I'll point out is, in my experience here and in Macon County, I've been called upon to start drafting something at 2 o'clock in the morning in a flood that no one anticipated at 11 o'clock that night, and that's different. I agree. That's much different than a pandemic situation where it's a long drawn out thing. But just keep in mind that although we got technology to contact people, everyone may not always be available. 4 of you may not be available in some situations.
And I understand. If I may, Mr. Chair, if I can move on. So what are acceptable members of getting board vote? I mean, can it be done via email? Can it be done via text message? Can it be done via anything? Or does it have to be an in-person vote on an emergency declaration?
We still would have to follow the statutes, and it would be a board meeting with a quorum present.
In an emergency standard?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, we're able to do that here.
Yes, and Mr. Keefe, Commissioner Keefe, I acknowledge that this is very different than anything any of us have ever been through. I understand that differently, but as you said, the ordinance controls everything, and you can make distinctions in the ordinance as to things that the types of emergencies that you would authorize for the chair, vice chair to do, or you can do all of them. It's up to the board, but. I mean, we've had some very recent experience of how lives are actually at stake sometime on decisions, and it just takes time. It takes time to get in touch with 4 commissioners. I mean, it's just I can't emphasize much. I mean, it's not always like this. I mean, this has been going on now for weeks. We've had 2 governors. Proclamations, and everybody's had plenty of time to think about this and see what's happening around the world and in the country of this. But just keep in mind that this ordinance will affect every emergency that we have, whether it's a flood or an epidemic. So make sure that you keep that in your thoughts about what you come up with.
Is it acceptable to have language in there that if the board chair is not able to conduct a quorum within a time period, then that decision could be made by the chair?
It's acceptable to structure it any way that this board votes to do it. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Bruce?
Thank you. And mine are very similar. First of all, I'm also a member of the Green Fan Club. You've been a great faceplate for us at all the meetings you've had to attend, and I suppose you'll probably want to take a couple of days off when this is over with, and we'll lean very heavily to allowing that. So can't guarantee it at this point, but you know. We got just today from our clerk, Candace White, forwarding the BOCC special meeting 11:23, and here we are. So it's pressing a text button. It's not that onerous. Instead of someone just sending a message to the chair, we have already pre-made groups. It comes in there, commissioners +2, commissioners +3, and you send it and you say, we all need to be available at midnight or in 5 minutes for let's see, I wrote it down here. We've got out there now, and I am, believe me, at 64 and 11 months, way out of the loop, but we have now Zoom, GoToMeeting, Skype, FaceTime, House Party, or a simple call-in. Ours is even archaic over there, but they have them wireless where they're just kind of a little dome, and you can put as many as 30 phones coming into one little hub sitting in front of Marshall or Glenn right now, and if they want to participate, can participate, they participate. But as long as we have 4, we go forward, and that be the number one. And this getting into the pecking order below that, we're only really facing that because of this. So you're saying, well, you know, you got to look at all these other things. All these other things wouldn't require anywhere near the speed we've had to do with something like this. So I think I'm very appreciative of you getting terms from 83 back up to what is an emergency, rioting, all that stuff, getting all that clarified and brought up to modern times. But I don't think we're taking advantage of all the modern technology of how easy it is to get 4 of the 7 of us on the phone, on Skype, on House Party, on the new thing now is Zoom, GoToMeeting. It's just not that difficult. You don't have to be in a suit to do it. You can just say, we're going to do this all, be ready for the Skype call, be ready for the Zoom call at 1:40 today. And in 10 minutes, 7 people can either participate or they cannot. And then this other stuff kicks in. But to automatically go, one person, you pick up the phone, Amy, somebody picks up the phone and calls the chair and says, I need you to declare this as a state of emergency. And the rest of us don't even have any input at all. I think it will be chaos for 4 other people to get together, have a little meeting, and out of 5 things that were declared, wipe out 4 of them. Now that makes us look, one, ridiculous that we could get 4 together to wipe it out. Why couldn't we get 4 together to clean it up in the first place? So I mean, I just, this thing of moving away from, it's not like the governor. The governor's elected with a stack of powers that he or she gets when they become governor.
Yes, sir.
The chair of this thing, I think, presides at meetings, used to assign committee assignments. We got rid of most of those assignments, and signs action, follow-up orders, meets with Candace and Amy to sign things that were approved and directed by the board. So it's not that someone runs as chairman. If that were the case, and the chairman had some sort of special training in what is a biohazard, then maybe so, but I don't believe any of the 7 of us has that particular training, but a couple of us might have a little bit enough to at least participate in. So I'm glad we're bringing everything from the 80s up to now, but this is, our ordinance is back when big hair and hairspray was in, and we've come a long way since that as far as technology. So I would have something along the lines of, the chairman shall call an emergency meeting with notice to all commissioners about the place, date, time, and purpose. The meeting shall be conducted live if possible. If, to protect public health, safety, contagions, et cetera, a live meeting is not possible, the chair may designate the meeting to be via electronic means to include but not limited to Zoom, GoToMeeting, Skype, FaceTime, House Party, or a mere telephonic call lineup into a central group hub. A quorum shall proceed with the business of the meeting. If after notice to all commissioners a quorum is not available, any votes taken shall be considered a binding action by the board. If not, then get to this chairman thing, then the vice chair, and I concur with Mr. Keefe that the one person in the room, and I jokingly said a minute ago to Amy when Mr. Keefe said that she should be the one to make countywide decisions because she rides saddle on the entire county, would be our county manager. Not trying to stack her with this, hoping that our two 500-year hurricanes are behind us, hoping that we're done with our pandemic for a while. But if not, that's the person that should make the call on protecting the citizens in the entire county of Cumberland County. So I think, we were talking about this last week, then the governor jumped in, and we now are under a statewide order. I don't know what we would modify anymore, although the order says that we could, but what's in the back of everyone's mind that's going to be more stringent than Governor Cooper's thing? And that would concern me, that one person could go, I think the governor was good up to about right here, but I'm going to go ahead and take and run the ball a little bit farther. And then that go out as the county decree, and the six of us are going, say what? So I think there ought to be a pecking order starting with where it is right now, which is by board action.
Commissioner Adams.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, thanks to both of my colleagues, but I want to say thanks to all the staff, because it's not just one person out there running this, it's the whole staff. Once we activated that emergency services, everybody went on hold. So Dr. Green, not a slight to you, but to everybody, thank you all for all that you all did, because everybody's in this, from finances to everything. I'm slightly different than both of my colleagues. I was at the emergency at the EC during the hurricane, and I will tell you, thank goodness we're going to get a new building. At the bottom of the EC, you're not going to get all of that, Mike. I mean, you can go with all that Zoom and all of that. We couldn't even contact half of anybody that was in there. If this board does remember, even with the hospital, you remember, and I'll call it to your attention, that when Dr. Wells was down in Bladen County, she had absolutely no contact with Cape Fear Valley Medical Center. She had to go out to her car and hit OnStar to try to talk to Mike Nagowski. So yes, we've got all of that, but once a storm comes, I know we're talking about the virus now, but this ordinance just doesn't deal with that. It deals with all of these disasters that might come. And I would just tell you, when that hurricane came and it shut down all of that cellular and everything else, there was not an opportunity to make those phone calls and to make some of those decisions. And if it's in the middle of a disaster, the last thing you want to do is try to get up with 7 people. I heard you, Mike, when you said that, but I got at least 3 calls from the clerk just to make sure I was available for this meeting back and forth. It wasn't just 5 minutes ago that I got a thing on my phone that was going to be at 1 o'clock, and it was going to be at 1 o'clock. But it was a number of phone calls over the weekend. Are you available on this? Can we move it to this? We do that all the time. So it's my belief that in this, it ought to be the manager in consultation, not by herself, with the chair, the vice chair. But that's the route this thing ought to take. Even the part with the sheriff closing off the roads, unless it's just a dire emergency, should be in consultation with the manager. And then the board has, then what we would do is within that 24 to 48 hours time after that is to ratify that. I think we get that. I don't think the manager, any manager we have, is just going to make a decision without trying to get up with each one of us. And I think trying to get 7 people together to try to get 4, and when you say, hey, we only going to wait 24 hours, that may not happen. So With that, I don't necessarily leave it to the chair or the vice chair. We change every single year. I think that the manager gets to see the manager gets to see the whole entire picture. Each one of these departments that the manager's in contact with. So that would be the route that I think would be much more advantageous. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Madam Clerk, you want to call on the other colleagues, see if they want us?
Commissioner Council, would you like to offer some discussion, please?
I cannot follow all of the discussion. However, I'm looking at the only change I had was change 7. And I hear all of these suggestions, but we're talking about an emergency situation. I want to make sure that if the chair can't be reached, the director of emergency management is taken out of there, and it needs to be delegated to the county manager, please.
Thank you,
Change
Commissioner.
7 was my only concern. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Commissioner Council. Commissioner Lancaster, do you have discussion points?
No, ma'am, I do not. I'm listening.
Thank you. Commissioner Evans, do you have discussion points, sir?
No. No, I don't.
Thank
If
you.
you need a bigger one, I'm gonna run.
Yes, no, I have nothing to say.
Thank you.
At least, Mr. Chair. Jimmy put his back on if you saw.
I've followed the discussion to this point. I'm not sure exactly what Commissioner Council said. She had a problem with number 7.
She didn't want emergency services, and
Right.
she wanted to be
I
go to
understand.
the chairman.
She said
I mean, the
7. What,
county manager.
did she say 7, or did I miss it?
Change 7, yes.
Consider change 7
Oh, okay.
on the third page,
On
Marshall.
page 3, okay, I'm sorry.
Page 5.
Take the manager, emergency manager out of there. Emergency management out of there.
Okay. Okay.
Up at the front right there.
Keith, did you have something else?
Yeah,
I just wanted to follow up, Mr. Sheriff. And I respect, and I understand the sense of urgency in an emergency situation. All I'm requesting is that we not take, it's 65% of the board out of the mix on this, and at least make an attempt to have the board be able to weigh in on this, on this current situation that is going on right now. I have no issues with if a board quorum cannot be reached and a board taken with the board, that the chairman does, after that time, exercise the responsibility of the chair.
What's the time you're talking about?
Well, I think that would be up to us, but it doesn't need to be 48 hours or a week or anything like that, but I would say a pretty ambitious time zone, a time period. I believe that most of our commissioners are very involved in what's going on. I remember when Marshall and I went through Hurricane Matthew, we had 4 or 5 days knowing that it was going to come here. But, when we finally made the declaration, it was through guidance, and it certainly wasn't done within an hour that we did it. We got feedback from everybody, and we weighed all the options. The county manager was very involved in this. So we all are elected by the people of Cumberland County in this position. We all have responsibility for this position we take, and we all have a responsibility to communicate with the citizens. To take 65% of us or 70% of us out of the mix, or at least the opportunity to have a say on what is happening in an emergency situation, I don't believe is the representation that most people feel like they would be getting. So to bring this all together, I believe that there should be an attempt by the chair to have a board vote in some way, and if that is not possible, then the board has the authority, the chair has the authority to declare.
Everyone had a chance to speak. Anybody else?
I do.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Commissioner Booth.
Thank you, sir. I did a little calculations, and it looks like it'd be about 86% of the elected body would be taken out, because 7 into 100, then times 6 is out. So 14% of the elected body would make a decision, and depending on the sensitivity level or the priority or the background of that person, that may be it. So I agree with Glenn. We shouldn't be waiting days, weeks. We shouldn't wait till our next meeting or our Thursday summary. I'm talking about something like within 12 hours, 6 hours, whatever that is, but if it's an emergency, don't worry about waking me up. I mean, I'm not, you know, that's what I'm saying. If it's an emergency that one person's going to make the decision, wake up six other people. I mean, that's, you know, if it comes to emergency services communicated to the county manager, she sends out the marshal and 6 others memo and says, we're going to have a meeting via phone or go our new Zoom account or something like that in 1 hour, then we've tried. And then at 1 o'clock, the meeting's had. If the only person that shows up is the then sitting chair, then that's the meeting. Then you go on. I'm happy with that. But not just to have, it was such a tragic emergency, I only woke up one of you. It's not really an emergency then. If we're not going to wake up 6 out of 7 commissioners, it's not really that big a deal.
Yeah. Commissioner Adams,
Yeah, I can go along with, if you do 6 hours, that's 1 hour per person. I think, and at the end, I think everybody is in agreement to take out the emergency management and put in, that's the easy part. So I think we can do that, if everybody agrees to that. Because I think that's what Jeanette was talking about, is the county manager on that.
Okay.
And then give the chair 6 hours to contact everybody. That's an hour per person. If you don't have that, then move in consultation with the manager.
if I could offer a suggestion, you asked about a timeline, and what Commissioner Bruce just said. If the chairman calls a meeting and does not have a quorum and is not able to do it, then the chairman has the authority at that time.
That was in my little thing here, is that you try to call the meeting, you give a reasonable amount of time.
It's immediate.
6
It's immediate.
hours.
Yeah.
You call a meeting in 6 hours. If a quorum shows up, board action's taken. If a quorum doesn't attend, chairman moves on.
I'd have no problem with that.
Before we get too deep in the woods on the number of hours and so forth, what does the general statute say about calling an emergency meeting?
I think what you're talking about now is truly an emergency, and the only thing that you'd have to do is give notice by electronic means to the sunshine list, which is the media and anyone who's requested notice.
See, that's it.
What kind of time period is
There is
involved?
no, for a real emergency meeting, there is no time requirement. You do it just as quick as you can, that's it.
What constitutes a quorum?
It's still, now, the quorum will still be, in your case, it still require 4 to be a quorum, yes, sir.
Yeah, again, that goes to my point. If we're worried about the sunshine list getting notice, but not 6 commissioners, it's not really an emergency, folks. If we're worried about Bill Bowman getting notified over at Up and Coming, then we certainly could have woke up the rest of us.
Mr. Chair, here's what
I
I
do.
think.
You're 6.
Well, I think what's going to happen is we're going to do this today. When the General Assembly goes back into session, they're going to change all these laws because it's been a big problem the whole statewide. So all we're doing, I think, in the short term is dealing with about whenever the General Assembly comes back, because I think they're going to get some clarification for what the governor can do, what counties can do, how these meetings go. I think they're going to do the same thing we're doing, come up from the 80s up until now. So I think we can all go with this short term of the 6 hours, because I think we're all going to be back here again in a short while to kind of really to redo this. That's what I believe is going to happen.
And those are
All right,
probably
well, that's-
appropriate comments, yes, sir.
I'm sorry, Mr.
I said those are probably appropriate comments.
Pull the mic out. There you go.
Okay, I think we can all agree on the change that Commissioner Council suggested. Does anybody have any issue with that?
You got that, right? You know what that is?
Yes, yes, sir.
Madam Clerk, can you ask our others if they have any issue with?
Is there a motion on the table?
No, not yet. I'm asking questions.
Commissioner Council, I'm asking if you're in agreement
Yes.
with removing the emergency services manager and placing in there the county manager.
She suggested it.
She
So-
said yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Commissioner Lancaster, are you in agreement with removing the emergency services manager and putting in the county manager?
Yes.
Commissioner Evans, are you in agreement with removing the emergency services director and replacing it with the county manager?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, let's go to item, let's see, where are we at?
Change
Change
7.
4.
Four?
E. No, I'm sorry.
4E.
Change 4, 1, E, which is the underlined in yellow, highlighted in yellow on page 9, where it says the sheriff of Cumberland County will be given the authority to close the streets.
Yes.
Want to change that to the county manager?
In consultation, at least with the county manager, or at least,
Sheriff in consultation with the county manager?
Page,
Is that good? Like, that's the highlighted,
I can't find it.
Commissioner Council, I'm looking at the highlighted portion on page 9, where it says the sheriff of Cumberland County may be given the authority to close streets. Streets, roads, highways, bridges, public vehicular areas, or other areas primarily used for vehicular travel. Do you see that?
And that would be, oh, sorry.
And the change that is suggested is that that be changed to the sheriff of Cumberland County in consultation with the county manager. Madam Clerk, can you ask if they are in agreement with that?
Commissioner Council, are you in agreement with the sheriff having the authority in consultation with the county manager?
Sheriff,
For the Cumberland County Sheriff to have the authority to close streets, roads, highways, bridges, public vehicular areas, and other areas ordinarily used for vehicular traffic to the Cumberland County Sheriff in consultation with the county manager. Are you in agreement with that language?
next page. Oh, yeah. It's easier to,
I can't find that language, please.
tell her to go to the first third.
Commissioner Council, it's on page 9, in consultation with the county manager is an addition being offered by the board.
And it's also in the county attorney's memo
Summary.
on page 2.
Yes.
Actually, no, well, it references page,
Okay.
which page is it referenced?
Mr. Chairman, another way to say it, my request was for the board to determine whether or not it wanted to give that authority to the sheriff or retain it itself. It's my understanding that at least the suggestion is that the board wants to give that authority to the sheriff, provided it's in consultation with the county manager. Is that a correct statement of it?
Correct. What did we get from our,
Commissioner Council,
ca-
have you had an opportunity to come to a decision?
I keep going back and forth, but I cannot find the sheriff.
While you're,
Page 10?
Page,
while you're looking, I'll reach out to Commissioner Lancaster. Are you in agreement with that change, sir?
I'm okay with,
Commissioner
I'm
Evans?
all right with that if Attorney Moorfield agrees.
I agree that the board can prescribe that, yes, sir.
Thank you. Commissioner Evans, are you in agreement?
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
tell, Dr. Council, can you hear me? Dr. Council,
I can hear you vaguely.
vaguely, okay.
Am I the only one that's questionable about this one?
You're the only one not heard from. Look at the county attorney's memo where it says Office of the County Attorney, Memorandum, Board of Commissioners. Look on the second page of that. Do you see where I'm talking about? In the electronic version, it may not be on the second page, I'm sorry. It's on the second page we have, but look under page, on that memo, look under where it says page 9. change 5,
If
do you
you've
see
got
that?
6 commissioners in favor of it, I will not be the only one who's
Okay,
not,
I hear that as a positive.
because I can't find it.
Okay.
Okay, all right, so make note of that change, all right,
I
the next,
can't thumb through all this stuff.
I understand. The next
If you
item,
got 6 yeses,
Yes.
Yes, ma'am, that is correct.
Mr. Chairman, could we
Yes.
put county manager
all
or
right.
designee?
Well, this
Heaven
idiot
forbid,
won't be standing alone.
heaven forbid I'm not here or the manager's not here, but just in
designee.
case, please.
does everybody agree that it'll be county manager or designee, or her or
His or her
Yes.
designee.
the county manager or designee?
Commissioner Council, do you agree with county manager or her designee?
Or her designee, okay,
His or her
His or
designee.
that's fine.
Could be me.
Commissioner Evans, do you agree
Or
with the
his.
county manager or his or her designee?
Yes.
Commissioner Lancaster, do you agree with the county manager or his or her designee?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item then, there's a big highlighted item on page 10 that's struck through any proclamation issued, et cetera, et cetera. Do you all agree to strike this out?
Yeah, I agree that it'll be, the time limit will be in whatever proclamation comes forward. It shouldn't be limited to 5. It might be 5 weeks, indefinite, 30 days, 1 day. So, yes, strike the 5.
Okay, recommendation, change 6, remove that. We'll just take the recommendations there as a blanket, but look at item
minute.
G
Wait a minute,
underneath.
let me make sure I'm
Mr. Chair,
clear.
I got a question.
I'll make sure clear.
Okay.
It looks as though Rick wanted to strike that whole passage and
Right.
just say, because we can rescind the proclamation at any time.
Correct.
So not just taking out that little bit, striking that whole passage.
No, it is just a specific language. The
Right.
rest of that section's okay, yes, sir.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay.
Mr. Chair,
Just striking out what's
Strike.
underlined there.
That last
Right.
sentence.
Highlight.
Right, that's
Yeah,
right.
just the last highlighted section.
Yeah.
sorry,
Language.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Keith?
This is from an attorney. So who has the authority, does the Board of Commissioners, or they have the responsibility of rescinding the emergency declaration at whatever time they feel? Or is that up to some other, yeah?
Okay, if you grant the authority to the chair that way, then the chair has the authority to rescind it when the chair deems prudent. However, the Board of Commissioners always has the authority to override the chair in that instance or to rescind something he's done. So the board ultimately always has the authority to rescind when the board deems fit, but it would have to be through a called meeting. But if you grant the authority to the chair, then the chair would have the authority to
Okay,
rescind
thank
that.
you.
Okay, and finally, just under that, consider change 7, the item that's highlighted there, choosing between what used to be the EO's, the emergency operator.
Emergency director to the county
What's he
manager.
called now? Emergency director? Okay.
Emergency services director.
Either that or the county manager. So we need to choose between those two in that highlighted item. Mr. Keith, you still,
I'm sorry, no, I'm off.
okay, who wants to, anybody have any comment on that?
I thought we
That's-
did that. Okay.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I think we already have.
We
my-
did
my
that.
notes
We did
say
that
one.
already-
Okay,
we
my
already
bad.
approved
Okay.
that. Yes, sir.
All right, let's see.
Mr. Chairman,
But
at
you
some
could-
point, could I ask a question, please?
Absolutely.
So just for my clarification, and maybe Rick can help me with this hour time limit in here, and please, I'm not trying to change the direction you're going in, but I'm not only just thinking about a tornado or a hurricane. Is there any flexibility in here, Rick, that if there's a chemical plant issue or a tank car, that the county manager, because of an immediate need, has the authority to evacuate an area, or I can't do anything? Help me with that.
I think the board could give you that specific authority, under such parameters as the board wished.
Mr. Adams?
Well, I guess, and I understand you talking about the chemical stuff, is, I think, and Rick, I'll ask you about the statute as to the health department. You declared a health problem right away. That gives you all kind of emergency authority, wouldn't it? If you got a chemical spill and all of that, along with what goes on with the law enforcement.
Yeah, and all of you need to keep in mind, these things, I don't think we haven't in the last few years had anything that was a single proclamation. They have been supplemented, they have been modified. And so, and that's, look at what's happened at the state level with the governor's orders. There have been about 3 of them right now. So it's a dynamic process. My understanding is what the board has suggested in terms of this ordinance is that to call a special meeting or an emergency meeting, and that have to come, the manager certainly would instigate that, but it would have to come from either the chair or 4 commissioners to actually call the meeting. And there would be an effort made by the county manager to contact all 7 commissioners, and if could not do so within 1 hour, then then the authority would vest to the county manager. That's the first part of this. Is that correct? Okay. And then, if you contact everybody, if the board could meet within 6 hours, then it would vest with the board commissioners.
Mr. Chair, to Ms. Cannon's concern, I think any time that there is the chance, any emergency that has a chance of immediate death or peril, well, I'm not going to say peril because peril is pretty subjective, but the loss of life, that decision has to be made at some level immediately. Was that your concern, Ms. Cannon?
Yes.
It wasn't just that there's
It's not
something
that-
that possibly could, no, but
There's
if
an
you believe.
immediate threat.
If there's an immediate threat to loss of life, that authority be given.
Yes.
I would certainly be willing
Right.
to discuss that.
She takes that action and then calls the meeting.
Yeah,
That's
I
fine.
would certainly,
Yeah.
I would certainly feel like that's appropriate.
Yeah, not if we've identified a hurricane off the coast of Africa making its way here in 14 hours. That's not life-threatening.
Thank you.
Okay, we're about to wrap it up.
Check to see if they had, anybody on the phone had a comment.
Is there anybody that's on the phone have any, Madam Clerk, will you direct my question to them, you know?
Commissioner Council, do you have further comments?
I hope I understand everything. It's very hard to hear. Okay?
Thank you. Commissioner Evans, do you have further
Thank
comments?
you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Lancaster, do you have further comments?
No, ma'am, I'm encouraged by what I'm hearing.
Commissioner Evans, do you have further comments? Commissioner Evans?
I
I'm sorry, I had the mute button on. No, I don't.
Thank you all.
Okay, then we need a motion to adopt the ordinance as amended.
Mr. Chairman, and I guess we never got down to the hours, I guess is my issue.
What else comment?
I think it's been some discussion about not the chair and the vice chair having that power without calling a meeting or attempting to call a meeting. I think 6 is too long
Okay.
in an emergency. I would say maybe 2.
Two's
I
good.
think 6 is just too long. When that hurricane and some of that other stuff came, I think some disasters just,
good.
so I think, I would say at least no more than 2. No more than 2.
And Rick, well, I think the question, and there's wisdom in that, and to the county manager's concern, how would you rewrite that to allow the county manager to make an emergency declaration with life or,
That'd be another provision,
would that be something different, or would you?
Let me run over this, because I've got to write this up and get it in a version that's distributed. But as I understand the board's directions now, if there is an immediate threat of loss of life, the authority to take the action is given to the county manager. That's the first thing, is that correct? If it's not an immediate threat of loss of life, then if the Board of Commissioners, if a quorum of the Board of Commissioners can be contacted within 1 hour, and the board can meet and the board meets within whatever, you haven't, I don't think you've decided on that. If you give me that, then it would be either a board decision if you have a quorum present, and if not a quorum, a chair decision. Is that?
Rick, can you break those up into two different things? I think the loss of life is a whole different thing than what we're talking about here.
Okay.
So
Yes,
just
sir.
make two provisions.
All right.
That's a
Immediate
provision
and two.
by itself.
Okay.
And then this part that you already got, which
Okay.
is this recommendation, would be a separate one.
Okay.
Because I think those are two different things.
Yeah, I
Do you
understand.
agree with that?
Yeah, yes, sir. Yeah, and that's, I guess I wasn't
Yeah,
stating it very well,
that's
but
okay.
loss of life, county manager. I mean, immediate threat of loss of life, county manager. If it's not that, anything else, then 1 hour to notice the Board of Commissioners, and whatever number of hours you tell me to hold a board meeting.
I think you said 2. Is that good?
2 hours after the 1 hour, or 2 hours after contacting the last
Just
commissioner?
2 hours. I
2
don't
hours.
think you have to say
Okay.
just 2 hours.
All right, 2
Just
hours.
take the 1 hour out and say 2 hours.
All right. Is
You gotta give
everyone,
them a chance to send out the.
is everyone okay with that then?
And if you want to carry on to it, if the chairman's not available, then the vice chairman could then make that decision too. I think that's.
Yeah.
All right, and so we got the 1 hour notice, 2 hours to hold a meeting. So if you do that, then it's a board decision, correct?
Right.
All right. And
After that, it's the
after
chair.
that, we
After
go
that-
to this process in the
The
ordinance.
chair, and then to the manager.
Yeah, chair, vice chair, manager,
I
right?
got it.
Okay.
And it's my understanding if this is not a unanimous vote, then it'll be considered again at the next regular meeting. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, although if you do that, then I would have this in a final version, and I want to distribute the final version also as soon as I can to everyone if it's adopted today, so, yes, sir.
Okay, do I have a motion to adopt this as
Yeah.
stated as amended?
I'd make that motion that we adopt it with those
So
changes. that we had.
moved.
Okay, there you go.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
It is unanimous with
Aye.
those present. Commissioner Council, your vote, please.
I didn't understand the insertion of an hour in there.
Commissioner Council, if I might try to explain that again, what the board is now got on the table for the new ordinance is if there is an immediate threat of loss of life, for instance, a chemical plant explosion or something of that nature, then the county manager shall have the authority to take action without any further board direction. Other than that, there will be an
All right,
Okay.
that's good.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Council.
I think.
Commissioner Lancaster, your
Just
vote,
may I
please.
add,
Yes, in favor.
Thank you. Commissioner Evans, your vote, please.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
So it is unanimous.
Okay, that was a unanimous vote, so it will not require a second reading.
That's correct.
Anything further to come before this board?
Stay safe.
Wash your hands.
Motion to adjourn.
wash your hands.
Okay, I got a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Second.
And that is unanimous.
Meeting adjourned.